So as we see here, the equation balances. Excuse me, is this seat taken? No, go ahead. Thanks. Miss, why does this reaction favor the meta position? Because the hydroxyl group is a meta director, professor. But why? Think about the mechanism. Oh, I see. Hydroxyl group donates electrons, making the meta position more. How do you reconcile market efficiency with ethical justice? By prioritizing human dignity in economic models. But what about the cost? Fairness has a price worth paying for a just society. So this boundary map gives us the homology group, and it's isomorphic to the Cathaic homotopy group. Exactly. Let me show you the next step. Ah, I see. The chain complex resolves it. She can't count. Until she proved a theorem, no one had ever seen the lecture hall at Columbia University's Department of Advanced Mathematics smelled like old wood, chalk dust, and decades of academic pride. It was the kind of room where legends were made and where the unprepared were quietly destroyed. 17-year-old Amara Washington stood at the door, backpack over one shoulder, a worn composition notebook pressed against her chest. She was early. She was always early. She had earned her place here through Columbia's Prodigy Bridge Program, a competitive scholarship for exceptional students who hadn't yet graduated high school. Out of 4,000 applicants nationwide, 12 were selected. Amara was one of them. But nobody in this room knew that yet, and first impressions in elite academic spaces have a way of becoming permanent ones. Professor Gerald Whitmore was 63 years old, the author of 7 published mathematical theorems, and the recipient of the Fields Medal, the Nobel Prize of Mathematics. He had taught at Columbia for 31 years. His students called him brilliant. His colleagues called him difficult. His department chair called him untouchable. He was also the kind of man who decided what a mathematician looked like before they ever opened their mouth. When Amara walked in and took a seat in the front row, Whitmore glanced at her the way people glance at wrong answers. Briefly, dismissively, already moving on. The classroom filled, graduate students, PhD candidates, a few visiting scholars from Europe, the judges panel, a group of 3 senior faculty evaluating today's student presentations, settled at their long oak table near the chalkboard. One of them, Dr. A. Sterling, a quiet, sharp-eyed woman who had broken barriers of her own decades ago, watched Amara with something closer to curiosity. Today's session was a formal academic competition, the Whitmore Invitational, where students presented original mathematical work. The winner would receive funding, publication consideration, and a letter of recommendation from Whitmore himself. There were 6 presenters on the list. Amara's name was last. The first 5 presentations were impressive. Complex topology proofs, advanced calculus applications, a graduate student's work on differential equations that earned a standing murmur of appreciation from the room. Then the moderator called Amara Washington. A few people looked around, confused. When the girl from the front row stood up and walked toward the chalkboard, the confusion turned into something uglier, amusement. Someone whispered. Someone else laughed quietly. A student near the back nudged his friend. Professor Whitmore leaned forward at his podium, tilting his head slightly. He pointed a single finger at her, not hostile yet, just testing. "You're presenting?" he asked, the question carrying just enough surprise to sting. "Yes, Professor," Amara said. Her voice was steady. She uncapped a piece of chalk. "Your name again?" "Amara Washington." Whitmore's eyes moved to the program sheet in his hand. He found her name, then he looked up. "How old are you?" 17. The room shifted. A few more people smiled, not with her, at her. 17, Whitmore repeated, drawing it out like a punchline warming up. "And what are you presenting today, Ms. Washington?" "A proof," she said simply, "of a convergence theorem I've been developing for the past 2 years. Whitmore let a slow smile cross his face. He turned slightly toward the audience, a performer acknowledging his crowd. "A convergence theorem," he said. "Wonderful. Should be quick, then." The laughter that followed was soft, but unmistakable. Amara did not flinch. She turned to the chalkboard and began to write. What happened in the next 22 minutes would be talked about in the Columbia Mathematics Department for years. She began with a foundational setup, clean, elegant, precise. Her notation was flawless. Her logic moved like water finding its level, each step inevitable, each transition airtight. At the 5-minute mark, the laughter in the room had stopped. At the 10-minute mark, Dr. Sterling had put down her pen and was leaning forward with both elbows on the table, her expression unreadable but intense. At the 15-minute mark, a graduate student in the third row quietly opened his laptop and started typing, not notes. He was trying to verify what he was seeing in real time. Amara was constructing something nobody in that room had ever encountered. She called it the topological recursive convergence framework, a mathematical structure that unified two previously incompatible approaches to infinite series behavior under topological constraints. It solved a boundary problem that 3 published papers in the last decade had attempted and failed to crack. She drew a circle on the board in red chalk, pointing to the critical transition point in her proof. "This," she said calmly, "is where previous models collapsed. They assumed uniform continuity at the boundary. My framework removes that assumption and replaces it with a recursive stability condition that holds across all epsilon neighborhoods." The board. His mouth was slightly open because he recognized what he was looking at. He had spent 6 months 2 years ago trying to solve the exact same boundary problem. He had abandoned it, written a private note to himself that it might be unsolvable with current mathematical tools. The teenager at the chalkboard had not only solved it, she had built an entirely new tool to do it. When Amara set down her chalk and turned to face the room, the silence was the kind that only comes when something genuinely unprecedented has just occurred. Dr. Sterling was the first to speak. "Miss Washington," she said, her voice measured, deliberate, "walk me through the recursive stability condition on line 7, specifically the implication for non-Hausdorff spaces." Amara walked her through it, every step, every edge case, every assumption. She anticipated the follow-up questions before they were asked. Dr. Sterling sat back slowly. She wrote one word on her notepad and circled it twice. "Publishable." A graduate student in the back raised his hand. "Where did you study topology formally?" "I didn't," Amara said. "I taught myself. Library books, online papers, MIT open courseware." She paused. "And a lot of time." The room exhaled. Professor Whitmore had not spoken. He stood at his podium, gripping the edges of it, staring at the board. His reputation had been built on knowing, always knowing, more than everyone else in the room. Right now, he was not the smartest person here. He cleared his throat. "Miss Washington," his voice had changed. The performance was gone. What remained was something rarer from Gerald Whitmore, genuine uncertainty. "This recursive condition, did you derive it independently?" "Yes." "No collaboration? No advisor?" "No." A long pause. "You're 17. "Yes," Amara said simply. "I am." The Whitmore Invitational had never ended in a unanimous first-place decision before. The judges typically deliberated for 30 minutes. That day, it took 4. Dr. Sterling announced the winner. She didn't bother with preamble. First place and a unanimous recommendation for peer-reviewed publication, Amara Washington for the topological recursive convergence framework. The applause started slowly, then built into something real. After the room emptied, Whitmore approached the chalkboard where Amara was erasing her work carefully, saving what she needed in her notebook. He stood behind her for a moment as if choosing words for the first time in his life. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. Amara turned around. "You mocked me before I had said a single word," she said, not with anger, with precision, in front of everyone. "I know. I had assumptions I had no right to make." Amara looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something he didn't expect. "I know you worked on this problem. I read your 2023 department memo, the one you submitted before withdrawing the research. It's in the archive." Whitmore went very still. "You gave up on it," she said. "I didn't." She closed her notebook, zipped her backpack, and walked toward the door. She paused once without turning around. "That's the difference, Professor." 3 months later, Amara Washington's topological recursive convergence framework was submitted to the Annals of Mathematics, the most prestigious mathematical journal in the world. She was the youngest person ever to submit a solo-authored paper to that publication. Dr. Sterling became her formal academic mentor. Professor Whitmore, to his credit, wrote her the strongest recommendation letter of his career. In it, he said, "I have taught mathematics for 31 years. I have never encountered a mind like this. I hope I have the humility to say I was wrong about her before she opened her mouth. I will spend the rest of my career making sure no student of mine is made to feel what I made her feel that day." Amara Washington graduated high school at 17, enrolled at Columbia at 18, and defended her doctoral thesis at 22. She did not build her career on revenge or resentment. She built it on something more powerful, proof. Because in mathematics, as in life, the answer does not care about your opinion of the person who found it. The proof stands. The work speaks. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply say, "Watch me," and then do it.